Repulsion and their album Horrified. I had to do it away because then the microphone won't pick it up. It'll just be like slide noises. So let's get into it. Is this album really that repulsive? Originally released in 1986, kind of, as Slaughter of the Innocent, Repulsion's Horrified took forever to get a record deal. Labels thought that Slayer fans could not handle this kind of music. Necrosis Records eventually took the risk and released it 3 years later. There was no influence to really be inspired by. Repulsion is the first ever, I'm assuming, gore grind album. I mean, Carcass was 89 with their first album. Yeah. And Terrorizer was 89. Napalm Death was 89 or 88, 87. It influenced bands of many. Everyone from the as before mentioned Napalm Death, Terrorizer, and Carcass, as well as Autopsy and Pentago, and others. Many others. With Matt Olivo and Aaron Freeman's inspiring guitar strumming that others tried to mimic but can't quite find the right tuning, they used Dave Grave Hollingshed to accompany the guitars with vicious blast beats. And Scott Carlson also did the bass and vocals. This band rocked, as well as changed only a smidge over the years. They're still together and are playing gigs, even though they've only released one album. This album in 1989. According to an interview, the reason that a second album can never be made for Repulsion is basically because they didn't think they could recapture the magic that was Horrified.
I'm sure that, a number of underground metal labels would give us the money to make a record, but it just wouldn't be the same. It would be older guys trying to capture something. We couldn't do what we do now, what we're into now, and put the name Repulsion on it. It would disappoint too many people.
In terms of production, the 1986 recording is very static heavy. Believe it or not, this adds to the overall charm of the album. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a muddy record, very slimy. The grinding guitars shred through your body frame, turning you into mincemeat. This album was way ahead of its time. Or right on time, if you want to look at it that way. The gore grindcore genre was in its early months. Repulsion shredded onto the scene first, with gory yet kind of humorous lyrics, which were beyond extreme back then. That's why they're kind of humorous. It's understandable why record labels thought their audience was not ready for this kind of music. They didn't understand the growing genre that well, did they? It's a fast, fierce, and ferocious release that is heavy on noise and not sorry for blasting out your eardrums. There are also several other songs that are from a couple of demos worth listening to. The quality is much better, and it contains several of my favorite tracks in Repulsion's song listings. I'll get to my favorite tracks on Horrified, including the demos, in a bit. Thrash growl vocals! Thrash growl vocals definitely add a layer of sickening enjoyment to this album. I don't know if that's a term, thrash growl vocals, and if it isn't, trademark. What exactly is thrash growl, though? Think Cannibal Corpse's Eaten Back to Life. And you'll remember the quick, disgusting vocals. and you'll remember the quick, disgusting vocals. You kind of get that here, but on a lower register. Scott Carlson was way ahead of the era he inhibited. I mean, Chuck Schuldiner had his loud, raspy vocals and low screams, but I think Scott got the sound down to pat way faster than Chuck did, because Chuck was more brash, while Scott was just low. Everything blends together perfectly in this 29-minute album. Each song is fast or slow, mostly fast, and they all usually stay under 2 minutes. With 18 songs, it's easy to see why. I love the kick pedal and the guitar work the most. The vocals are great, don't get me wrong, but sometimes they're really melted in there. Usually I'm a bass guy, but those guitars in this album shred like no tomorrow on Horrified. Horrified! The bass is something I'm kind of trying to pin down in some songs. I know the basic sound of it. Boom 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 boom. Sorry, peace cells. Sometimes I do have trouble differentiating between the guitars and bass. In time, I'll learn, I guess. I have to train my ears better. Back to the drumming, though. It makes about as much of a blast as the guitars do. Like I said, they coincide and generate tons of blast beats. While this is not the first to do blast beats, it's not the original. There's another band, I forget which band it was, that started doing them first. However, at the time, they were probably the ones doing them the most. So what are my favorite songs on Repulsion's Horrified? I have 10 tracks here out of 18 plus, 7 from the demos, and let's go down. Number 10, Bodily Dismemberment. Number 9, The Stench of Burning Death. Number 8, Maggots in Your Coffin. Number 7, Something Dead. Number 6, Splattered Cadavers. Number 5, Crematorium. Number 4, Black Breath. Number 3, Rebirth. Number 2, House of Freaks. And number 1, of course, Horrified. Now I know that Acid Bath is really popular, but I just can't really get into that song yet. I might have to listen to it a lot more just to really get the feel. So this was a turning point in the genre, and it deserves to be up there as regarded as a classic. I love listening to this album in all of its crappy quality. It can go fast or slow, whatever it needs to do to please you. And even with the crappy quality and some really muddy production, I'd have to say that overall I give Repulsion's Horrified a 4 out of 5. That's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you all for watching, and Lion Brian Gatto, the horror show host. Make sure to like, comment on, as well as share this video. Like my Facebook fan page and support me on Patreon. Even $1 a month will help keep the channel going on strong, and I'd greatly appreciate it. Also hit that notification bell, and as always, subscribe.